Hello, everyone. So, welcome to a special session of Sipping Tea with Sabrina. This is the Mind, Body, and Soul edition. And I'm so glad you're here today for this very special conversation because today is my birthday. And the only way I knew I wanted to celebrate this was in community with you. And so we're diving into something deeply personal and transformative, and that's setting healthy boundaries in your nonprofit work. The difference between giving of yourself and giving up yourself. That's so key. If you never met me before, I'm Sabrina Walker Hernandez. I'm the Dream Team Architect and President and CEO of Building Better Boards. But today, I'm also here as a cancer survivor who learned the hard way about the importance of setting boundaries and not just in life, but in work. So here you go. During my journey, I realized that giving too much of myself wasn't just unsustainable, it was unhealthy. And that's why this topic is so near and dear to my heart. And I'm thrilled to have Sheryl Green with us. And she's the How to Say No expert. And she's going to help us explore how we can protect our time, energy, and well being while still making a lasting impact in our nonprofit work. I cannot think of a better conversation to have on my 54th cycle around the sun. So, Sheryl, I'm so happy that you're with us today. Thank you so very much for saying yes.
Yes.
When we just, if you could share with the people a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So first of all, happy birthday. I was gonna wear a hat, but I couldn't find one. So I'm just going with the little pom-pom today. So
Yay, thank you.
I had little party hats for my dogs, and we must have gotten rid of them in the move, or you would have seen the cutest thing ever.
Yeah,
So
I could have worn hats too. I don't think that big. So thank you.
absolutely. So hey, yeah, I'm Sheryl Green. I'm the How to Say No expert. And I got that way after 40 years of doing it the wrong way. I love that you said I learned the hard way
Yeah.
because I think so many of us have. And the people that are really good at setting boundaries, we did so out of necessity. So yeah, I'm super grateful to be here. A little bit about myself. I'm a speaker. I'm an author. I wrote the book, Other Side, You Had Me at No, How Setting Healthy Boundaries Helps Banish Burnout, Repair Relationships, and Save Your Sanity. I am still an animal advocate, despite the fact that I am no longer in animal rescue. I have two wonderful rescue dogs. One will probably be snoring during this podcast. And I have an obscene amount of houseplants. So I just had to learn how to say no to houseplants.
Oh, that
That
is so interesting. After we finish here, this is unscripted, by the way. I got a
yes,
dying house plan I need to talk to you about and see what I'm doing wrong.
how to say no and how to keep your plants alive.
Yes.
And I still lose some, so I'll do my best. But yeah, I'm grateful to be here, and I'm doing what I do because I myself burned out in the nonprofit world, and I'm of no use to animal rescue anymore. Other than the fact that I donate a portion of my proceeds, like I am no use on the front lines. And I want to help other nonprofits avoid losing good people.
Yeah, that is great information. And so, how I just have questions because first of all, I love your book title.
Thank
I
you.
love what you stand for and what you do. And I know like a lot of nonprofit professionals, they give so much of themselves that burnout really is almost inevitable, right? And from your perspective, how can we start like recognizing the signs that we're giving up ourselves rather than giving of ourselves?
Yeah, overwhelm is an obvious one. If you're feeling super stressed, you're feeling like you can't catch your breath, like you have no time for yourself.
Mhm.
And a lot of us are used to living in that state, so we may not notice that that's actually a problem. But it is, I promise. But for me, I think the biggest realization and what I help my clients see is that resentment
Mm.
is a big indicator that something is wrong. You take a normally loving, giving, caring person who wants to give their all to serve whatever population it is and to serve their family and their friends. And you start noticing feelings of resentment. Like, I can't believe they're asking me to do that. I can't believe I
Mm.
have to do this for whatever person or whatever population. You get that kind of like inner, I don't like the word disgust, but it's the
Mhm.
best I've got right now. But when you start feeling that resentment, you are a hop, skip, and a jump away from severe burnout that you may not be able to come back from.
That is very interesting. I'm sitting here going, did I ever resent? And I can say, that's all, that's a how do you say it? Self-analyzing viewpoint to come from. Are you feeling resentment? I know that I had personal challenges, right? Like my cancer journey. And I've learned the importance of self care. But if you are in that state where you think you may be heading into burnout and you're not quite sure, how can, we balance the emotional weight of our work while maintaining that mental and physical health? Because if you're feeling resentment and headed towards burnout, there's no balance there. So how would you suggest you handle that?
I think you said the word before. Sustainability is a really big piece of this. And look, we want to be there. We want to serve. We want to save them all. We want to do all the things. But the reality is we can only do that for a short period of time. And if you want to go in like guns blazing and you want to fix the world in 6 months, do it. Do everything you can in that 6 months, and you don't have to sleep or eat or do anything. But if you'd like to be there for the long haul, because these problems are not going away overnight, there's always going to be more animals that need to be saved. There's always going to be more kids that need to be educated and fed. There's always going to be more veterans and homeless. And these problems aren't going away. So what do you have to do for yourself so that you can be there in the long run, that you can be there 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years from now, still serving that population and, fighting the good fight,
Right.
or doing God's work, which
Right.
that always got me when people say you're doing God's work. Like, okay, all right, it doesn't pay so well, but
Girl, pay me some more.
just a little. So like, or could God pay my mortgage? Like, however
Right.
we do this. So I think it's really realizing that there has to be a balance. Like, that's before we can even figure out how to create it. We have to get into the mindset of I can't do it all. And that's really hard for so many of us to accept and to admit.
It is so true. And I remember I would always go to these like work life balance or time management or all of these things, self care. And I would sit there and I would roll my eyes because I'm like, that doesn't exist in our industry.
Yes.
And it's a shame that it doesn't exist in our energy, but in our industry. But I also wonder how much of that is us, because for those in the nonprofit space, saying no often feels like saying no to the mission, like you alluded to. So what advice would you give someone who's struggling with guilt when trying to set those healthy boundaries?
Yeah. So look, I'm gonna throw out an ugly word, and we don't like to talk about this, but codependency is very real. And nonprofit is almost like a safe, healthier place to be codependent.
Okay, explain.
To have like, hey, I have true purpose in this world because my population needs me.
Okay.
And that is true. And here's the painful parts. How do I put this? When you can't do it anymore, you will be replaced.
Amen, sister.
I used to watch it all the time when somebody burned out at the rescue, where a week or two later it was like, who are you talking about? Because the organization just kind of like forms around, like it's this like blob that just kind of forms around, like, okay, that person's gone, that's okay, we got another one. So realizing, yes, you are so important to your organization, you are so important to the population that you serve, and if you continue to go on and you continue to burn yourself out, you won't be useful anymore and you will be replaced.
I'm a living, breathing testament to that. And that is very true. Life, you're right. There's no sugarcoating that. That is absolute truth. And so people need to hear that. Wow, you said a mouth. You said a mouthful, and I know it to be true. And I'm sitting,
and it hurts.
It hurts, and I'm sitting here and I'm processing. But in real life, that's exactly what happens in any business, right? In any business, that's exactly what happens. And so, one of my core beliefs is that nonprofit is a tax designation and not a business model.
Yes.
So, with that in mind, how can leaders shift their mindset to treat boundaries as essential to running a sustainable business, just like budgeting or strategic planning?
Yeah. From a leadership standpoint, you have to value your employees as much as you value the population you serve. And I have seen organizations, and I love this, they close down for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of like, oh, who's going to answer the phone when this person goes on vacation, or who's going to fill in the gaps. It is straight up, do not expect to hear from any of us. Our services cease for 2 weeks out of the year.
Yeah.
And everybody gets to go and they get to live.
Yeah.
So I would say that's number one, if you have the ability to do that. And I not every organization does. But the other thing would be, respect, but also help your employees enforce those boundaries. So what time are they working? Whether they work from home, they're out in the field, they're in the office, what time are they working? And in the for-profit world, it's easier to say, emergencies are few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
In the nonprofit world, that's not as easy to say because every day is a catastrophic emergency.
Every day is a fire. Every day, every single day.
So what does that look like for you? And if it's, having an A team and a B team, and I don't mean that in terms of how good they are,
right?
But having like, hey, during these hours, this team is on call, and even if they're not working, maybe you can reach out to them. But after those hours are over, they don't exist.
Right.
And you switch over to the B team.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just one person. I know nonprofits were always strapped for employees and funding and everything. But how do you protect them? And that looks like not reaching out after hours. Yeah, emergencies are going to always happen. So instead of seeing them as emergencies, seeing them as regular operating, experiences, and plan for it.
Yeah.
Take those vacations, but leaders, be a good example. Because when you are running around like a headless chicken with your hair on fire, which wouldn't happen if you're headless, but if you're running around like that and you are basically going to die at your desk, then your team is going to observe an unwritten rule that they have to as well.
Yep. I'm so glad you said that, because that was what was, as you were speaking, I was like, that was running through my mind, because again, you go into these, I hear you, and you go to these workshops because you have this issue as a leader. You continue to roll your eyes and you give intellect to that, but your actions as a leader shows different. And I can say, learn from my mistakes, right? I would be the first, almost like the first one in, and then I would almost be the last one out. But I was saying the right things about work-life balance, but I wasn't showing that. And I was judging people based on the standard that I set of what it meant to be a good employee. And I had someone, Cheryl, let me share this with you. I had someone, and I respect this person to this day because they did this. They pulled me to the side and they said, you have to understand that I'm not as in love with this mission as you are. And also, I have a family, which I had a family too. But they said, after 5 o'clock, I would appreciate if you didn't call, because that's my family time.
Yeah.
No one had ever said that to me before, set that boundary. And I was okay with it. I was like, I was impressed, to be honest, because I had a boss that I emulated the behavior that they demonstrated, and they trained me for 5 years. So I just continued on with that. And I never set that boundary. And it was always my family that suffered, and myself, of course. But I put my family second. I made that conscious choice. And they made a conscious choice that that was not going to happen. And I will forever appreciate them and honor the boldness that they had. And I think what you're saying, if people are just joining us, and welcome to the broadcast, if you are just joining us, we're talking about setting these healthy boundaries in nonprofit work, and the difference between giving of yourself and giving up yourself. And what I hear you saying again and again is, be careful of burnout. If you do burn out, know that the organization will continue without you. You're a cog in the wheel, and be careful that you want to be in this for the long term and not the short term. So take care of yourself and your people. I will say this, Cheryl, I will say this. My mentor, the person who trained me, we worked year round without any time off with youth, year round, with just, like Christmas off.
Right.
those. But one of the things I did do was, we got 2 weeks off between the end of summer, working with 300 kids a day. We got 2 weeks off between that and the after school program. That had not happened in our organization in 30 years.
Wow.
And that was revolutionary.
Yes.
So I'm like, okay, I was bad, but at least I gave people the 2 weeks off. So
You got a little something in there.
so thank you. We'll celebrate that little piece right there.
But honestly, like, thank you for admitting that that was you, and that somebody brought it to your attention. Because we're so often from an employee standpoint, we're afraid to speak up, because then what if we do lose our job? And worse than that, usually when you're a nonprofit, you care so much that your identity is kind of wrapped into this as well. So if you lose your job, it's not just like, oh, well, I don't get to work in retail anymore. You know, it's like, oh no, my purpose for living on this planet is gone. I will say, like, if I had died, I know this sounds morbid, but if I had died while I was working there, my tombstone would have said, but it's for the animals.
Yeah.
The amount of
I'm laughing at your death. I'm just laughing at
the amount of times that came out of my mouth,
Yeah.
but it's for the animals.
Mm-hmm. And mine, but it's for the kids. What about the kids? What about the kids? Wow. So let me ask you this. You've helped countless people learn to say no effectively. I'm still learning how to say no, Sheryl. So this is for me too. Look, I serve on 5 boards, Sheryl. And I'm also the chair of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. So I'm still learning. I'm still a work in progress here. So how can nonprofit leaders and the people in general who have this needs to give back, how can you help them teach their teams and even themselves to set boundaries while still fostering like collaboration and that culture of yes, so they to innovate and have opportunities? I just always, for me personally, it's always been hard for me to say no. So how do you do that?
So the first thing I'm going to say to that point is no doesn't mean never.
Mm.
Sometimes it does, but no doesn't have to mean never. And speaking of boards, I was asked to serve on the board of National Speakers Association 3 years ago when I started this boundary journey, and I said yes because that's all I knew how to say.
Yes.
And then I realized very quickly, like, danger, Will Robinson, like, bad idea. This is terrible. And I won't go into everything that was going on in my life at that point, but I ended up backing out of it. And quickly, I gave them time to find somebody else, but I was like, oh no, this is a terrible plan for me. And I started my boundary journey. Next year, I will be the president of the National Speakers Association, our Las Vegas chapter. So now I'm in a place that I can do it.
Right.
So no doesn't mean never. You can't do everything at once. So just because you're saying no to something now doesn't mean that a year from now, 2 years from now, when you've finished other commitments, that you can't take something on. So I would say that would be the first thing that I would share. The second one is it seems so simple, but I want to introduce people to the power of the pause. Mm-hmm. We are conditioned people pleasers, nonprofit folks, like women, like we've just got the reasons piling up. And we are conditioned to say yes before we think it through. And I call this yes vomit. I know that's disgusting, but it works. You know, someone asks you something and it's flying out of your mouth. Yeah, sure, I can do that. Yep, and I can do this and I can do that. And they're like, you know, yay, I know I get my needs met, but shh, just stop.
It is hard, girl. It is hard.
It is. Take a sip of water. Take a bite of food. Slap your hand over your mouth. Whatever you have to do to just be shh for like 30 seconds. Because then we're going to step out of that emotional brain and we're going to step into our actual like cognitive decision-making process. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be able to think to ourselves, okay, wait a second, hold on. And I run through 3 questions. I call them the clash question. And it's, do I want to or have to do something? And usually the answer to have to is not as often yes as we think it is. Mm-hmm. Do I have the resources to do it? Okay. And these next 2 questions are really where we're going to come in. Do you have the resources, the time, the energy, the money, the mental bandwidth? Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you actually do that? Do you have the tools to do that? And the last one is, are you willing to give something else up? So taking on one more animal, taking on one more kid into your program, one more, like adding one more school to whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. what are you giving up? Because you're going to have to say no to something in order to say yes to whatever this is. And that could be saying no to your family, as you did. It can be saying no to yourself, as so many of us do.
Well,
And it's something's got to give.
yeah.
Ultimately. So if you can't say yes, like definitively yes to all three of those, like, yeah, I want to or have to, I have the resources to carry it out. And I recognize that I'm going to be saying no to something else, and I'm okay with that. If the answer to all three of those isn't yes, you can't do it. Because something's going to suffer, whether it's you, whether it's your services, something's going to suffer. So that has to be really a very conscious decision that you make. And when we break things down that way, it's a lot easier to go, oh, wait a second, I actually have no business saying yes to this.
Yeah, that's a lot of clarity right there. Because when I mentor boards and CEO, I emphasize clarity and purpose in leadership. But you're saying you need to do the same thing when you're setting those personal boundaries. You have to enhance that clarity. And so let's say I hear you. I'm going to put that in place for me. But as a leader, how do you put that in place for your team?
So it's a great question. Do I have the employee power to that list of resources?
Mm-hmm.
You're running through the exact same process. Do I want to or have to take on this project as an organization? Yes, maybe. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Now, do my employees have the time and the bandwidth? Do I have enough staff, or am I going to be really stretching them to the point that they're going to break?
Yeah.
And now, I mean, once that happens, once you lose somebody, you're looking at hiring costs, you're looking at training costs, you're looking at the time it takes to bring someone on and get them up to speed. You're looking at all of the population you serve. You're looking at all of the lost time doing whatever it is you do for people or animals or the environment, whatever it is. So there's so many costs that get, we kind of don't look at that. We're just like, run. Oh, you're not good anymore. Okay, well, we'll move on.
Yeah.
So I would say really still run through that clash question. I call it that because it's should I yay or should I no?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where that comes from. But run through that with every decision you make and keep your employees in mind. Because again, they're going to follow your lead, and they want to please you, but they want to serve whatever or whoever. So
yeah, that's true. They are also there. They have their purpose. They to serve. They want to follow all of those things. And what I found in my journey is that, again, it was hard for me to say no, but there was a lot of external, pressure for us to always do more with less and not say no.
yeah.
So how can you really navigate those expectations from your funders, from your board, from your community, while still standing firm in your boundaries?
Yeah, I think communication is going to be really important here. Just being able to say, this is our bandwidth. This is what we have the ability to do. And if we're talking about funders, well, if you would like us to take on this other project, this other, whatever it may be, well, then we need to reevaluate the funds that are coming in, because I am doing everything I can with what I have. And I cannot stand that phrase, the do more with less. Can't stand it. It makes me like, ah. But, communicating to look, a lot of nonprofit work, there's getting involved in legislation.
Yeah.
And saying like, hey, I see the need here. And we can't meet it alone. So either I need support, government support to step up funding to increase the organization. I need another organization to take over this piece of it. I need you to step in and change laws. Like, it's not overnight. I realize that. And I think the hardest thing for us all to realize is that people, animals, everybody, they're going to fall through the cracks.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not something anybody wants to hear or admit, but you can't do it all, and the services aren't in place to do it all. So do everything you can, and do everything you can to still be here in a year.
Yeah. I remember towards the end of my journey, right before I was diagnosed and was also planning to retire, I had went through this kind of like transformation, and I really was changing, right? It's hard to change your, I don't know how they say it. I say old dog. It's hard to teach your old dog new tricks. But I really have started evolving. And a statement you said you hated, I wrote really big on my wall, and it said, "Do less to do more."
Yes.
I psyched myself out. Kind of do less to do more. And every time someone said, "Well, you can do that," and do less to do more, because you exactly what you said.
Yeah.
Your bandwidth, your staff bandwidth, your bandwidth. You can't do it all. So, what are we really, really good at? Let's focus in on that and not keep trying to spread ourselves all over the place to be everything to everybody. So, do less to do more was like on my wall, constant reminder for a while there. So, it makes me feel good to talk to you, because I really feel like maybe I was headed in the right direction. Eventually would have gotten there. And to have these conversations, maybe we're impacting someone that is sitting in that seat right now, who has the opportunity to hear you and make some changes. Because what I realized is that the cancer was dis-ease in my body. And it was because I was doing more with less.
Yeah.
So I'm just, that's why I'm so happy that you're here. So in your experience, what's the most powerful transformation you've seen in someone after they learn to set healthy boundaries?
Oh, there has been a lot. And I think, that's a good question. I will say one sticks out in my mind, and it wasn't a nonprofit situation; it was a family situation. But a woman was asked by her father to move cross country, give up her job, and help him on the farm. This guy was in his 80s. He had no business running a farm. This wasn't like a family business that they had all been brought up through. He just decided he wanted a farm and figured she should give up her life to come help him. And she was considering it because we have to say yes to our parents, right? They raised us, they love us, we love them. And we're not actually here for ourselves. We're here to make everybody else happy. And ultimately, she was able to say no. She was able to put herself first. And I know that sounds like some people are like clutching their pearls right now. Like, oh, did she just say that? But it's okay. It's okay to put yourself first. It's okay to I always say, make your priorities the priority.
Right.
And it does not mean, truthfully, I'm 3 years into this. I still firmly believe that we are on this planet to help one another.
Yeah.
That has not changed. I have not gone like full Scrooge over here. But I think we need to take care of ourselves first so that we can be here for other people. Because again, it goes right back to that sustainability. I can be there for you all day long, all week long, all month long, but eventually I'm going to crack, and then you're not going to have anybody.
It all makes intellectual sense.
I know.
And I sit here with that, frame of mind because I was that person. Like I would listen, I would go to your workshop, I would read your book, I would hear you, but my conditioning, like you said, I'm a woman, I'm a people pleaser, I'm in this nonprofit world where giving is what is expected, all of these things. So for that person who is struggling, like I did struggle. Now I told you I did eventually take a journey,
Yeah.
but what's the first step towards saying no?
Accepting that you have the right to.
Ooh.
Accepting that your value, your worth, your right to be on this planet is not tied to how much you give up for others.
Wow. That's deep. That is really deep. That hit me.
It's
I just want you to know that hit.
yeah.
You're gonna send me to therapy.
Yeah. Look, there's tools, there's tricks, there's skills, there's all the things you can learn about how to set boundaries, about how to say no, about how to communicate it, about how to do all of this stuff. But if you don't have that innate belief that you deserve it, that you have the right to it, and the responsibility, which is a whole other conversation. But if you don't accept that, none of those skills are going to matter. None of those tools are going to matter. None of those tips are going to mean squat. Because you have to feel it in here before you can ever put it out into the world as I smack my mic. So
Wow. Yeah, that's profound, and I thank you for saying that. Um, I usually end it by giving you the final word, but girl, you said a word. You
like,
just said a word. So my question to you is, if I'm on this journey, how do I connect with you?
so I used to say you shine a puppy light into the sky like Batman, and I'd come running. But now I don't work that way. So my website is SherylGreenSpeaks.com. It is Sheryl with an S. I am on LinkedIn. I send out a weekly boundary bite, which is a tip and a tool that you can use. And I have a how to say no cheat sheet on my website that you can grab for free. I'm around. It's me. All my contact information is on the site. I keep trying to get my dogs to answer emails, and they refuse to do it. So you will hear from me. But yeah, I love to hear from people. I love to hear what their challenges are. And look, if you need a one-on-one, I'm there for you. If you need me to come speak to an organization, I'm there. Yeah, just
I might need a one-on-one. But you know what? I'm evolving. I
yeah,
am evolving,
yeah.
and I think I'm not uncommon, especially in the industry that we are in, and so I think we need help sometimes, right? So before we wrap up here, I just really want to thank you again. You have really brought forth some incredible insight, and you've truly inspired me and I think the collective to think differently about boundaries, not as walls. When we think boundaries, we think we're putting up walls, but as a tool. And it's a tool to help us thrive as leaders. And in this leadership, we've chosen to be in this. And really, you know what? As I reflect on my journey, I want to leave people with this: you cannot pour from an empty cup. You got to prioritize yourself, not out of selfishness, but so you can serve others from a place of strength and clarity. Again, if today's conversation inspire you, because I am inspired, I encourage you to take action, whether it's saying no to something that doesn't align with your mission or creating your own plan for balance. Um, Small steps lead to big changes. And really, finally, to celebrate this journey and my birthday, I'm also offering a special 54% because I turned 54 today, 54% discount on the Strategic Leadership Action Plan template to help you create the clarity and focus you deserve. And so I'll drop that in the comments and the links. And I'll also drop Cheryl's contact information. And I just want to say, out of the kindness of my heart, Cheryl, and to everybody that's here, and everybody who's going to watch this in replay or listen to this on the podcast or YouTube or LinkedIn, wherever you're coming in from, I want to thank you for spending time with us. And thank you for sharing my birthday and community with me. And until the next time, I want you to take care of yourself and honestly know that taking care of yourself is the first step in taking care of the world. So with that, say bye-bye. Bye-bye. Y'all can send the birthday gifts via email at Sabrina at supportingworldhope.com. My cash app is, no, I'm kidding. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.